What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellowship. My name is Kyle. It is Tuesday evening, September 23rd. We're going to be looking at the Waiver Wire Report tonight. If you guys do have questions, go ahead and get them in the chat. I'm going to kind of cover the majority of my Waiver Wire Report, and then we'll kind of double back and get some questions answered for you guys. So, hey, good evening to Jason. Hope you're doing well. I got the Waiver Wire Report pulled up here for you, and it's week 4. There's not a ton of ads that I feel I love. Most of the waiver wires are probably already pretty beat up. But let's talk about the injuries that we're monitoring right now. We still got to see about quarterback Jaden Daniels and his knee injury. I'm thinking he's on track to play, but we're going to have that practice report coming tomorrow, hopefully, to make us feel better. Brock Purdy with the toe and shoulder. It sounds like he's going to be a go this week for Mac Jones did hurt his knee. So it looks like they're going to be without him potentially, which means Brock Purdy kind of got to get him in there. But I also think he was just kind of ready to get back anyways. We're going to be watching that Justin Fields concussion at the practice participation tomorrow. Hopefully he's able to go. I guess they play on Monday night, so we're not going to know till Thursday. So lean on Jay Fields being in Monday night. McCarthy, they've already ruled him out. We're still expecting him back week 7. The running backs got hit this weekend in week 3. James Conner with the season-ending ankle injury. If Trey Benson's on your waiver wire, like it's not even close. Like he is the top player to add. But you guys are playing in good leagues. He's not available in those type of leagues. Aaron Jones still going to be out with that hamstring, expected back week 8. Tyrone Tracy, though, Monday Night Football, dislocates his shoulder. He's going to be out a few weeks. I'm seeing anywhere between 2 and 4 games for this dislocated shoulder. That's going to give Cam Skattebo, the opportunity to kind of cement his status as the lead back. And now we get Jackson Dart, which we'll talk about in a little bit on the quarterbacks. I got Zach Charbonnet with the foot, but I've been seeing he's been practicing in full today and yesterday. They've just been kind of doing walkthroughs, but it does look like Charbonnet is going to be active on Thursday night. Pour one out for Najee Harris. He tore his Achilles. It's season-ending injury. Marion Hampton, a sigh of relief for Marion Hampton owners. It looks like he's going to be back onto his breakout trajectory that we were hoping for. Receivers, CeeDee Lamb, high ankle, out 3 to 4 games. Mike Evans, hamstring, out probably more to 2 to 4 games. I'm going to probably update that. We did get some news on Terry McLaurin, who's seeking other opinions. He's going to be probably out this weekend with a quad injury. I think Xavier Worthy's back with that shoulder injury. They say he can play with a small harness on. Jawan Jennings, we'll watch for his reports tomorrow. He's got an ankle shoulder thing. I'm expecting Chris Godwin back. They've been kind of saying week 4 he will be back, and I think that's pretty exciting. With Mike Evans especially being out too. We're not starting Chris Godwin this week, but I do think Godwin being back is good timing for Tampa Bay. Alec Pierce, concussion, Leggett, hamstring. If Brandon Ayuk and Jalen Coker are on your waiver wires, I think they're good picks. They're going to be eligible to return starting in week 5. And then Jags receiver Diami Brown hurt his shoulder. Tight ends, we did lose Jatavian Sanders with a high ankle for a few games. Colston Loveland had a hip injury. But we're getting Isaiah Likely back. We're getting Darren Waller back. And then we're still on track with George Kittle. So those are the injuries that I'm monitoring. If you guys need a quarterback this week, I mean, I guess Geno Smith offers the best upside. Maybe it's CJ Stroud at home against Tennessee. Maybe it's Tua on Monday Night Football against the Jets. Or Sam Darnold Thursday Night Football against the Arizona Cardinals. Some deep super flex stashes. I got to get Jackson Dart. He's not really an add in 1 QB leagues, but super flex leagues, if he wasn't on a roster, he would be a priority. I think Tyler Shuck, we're going to see him start at some point soon. And then Dylan Gabriel. I think Shuck and Gabriel are probably happening in sometime in October. And Jackson Dart is happening week 4. So pretty excited about that. Not a lot of running backs to talk about real quick here, guys. Again, Cam Skattebo is, if he's out there, he's priority. If Trey Benson's out there, he's priority. If Bashal Tutin's out there, I think he's priority too. Otherwise, it's kind of handcuff season. I think grabbing Ollie Gordon, Blake Corum, Woody Marks, these guys intrigue me a little bit here. Maybe you can snag Tajay Spears with him coming back soon. I think Kyle Monangai is someone that could get more work as the season goes on. Kendry Miller behind Alvin Kamara. There's kind of a little bit of a Kamara trade rumor buzz. So maybe Kendry Miller is a guy worth looking at. I think Sanders has looked okay for Dallas, and then DJ Giddens behind that offensive line in Indianapolis. These guys are just super deep stashes here. Wide receivers, there's still decent wide receivers, but there's really no one left to break the bank for. Wan'Dale Robinson, Troy Franklin would be my top 2 preferences. You can go for the rookie Alec Ayo-Maynor. I thought Christian Kirk looked pretty good with the underlying data for his routes and snaps and things like that. Tyquan Thornton, someone to keep an eye on, even though Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice will be back. The guy that there's two guys down here that I think are kind of sneaky ads, though. Parker Washington for Jacksonville, because I think Diami Brown might miss some time. And Parker Washington led the team in targets in week 3. He looks like a guy that they want to keep involved in their offense. So I like adding Parker Washington on the end of my bench. And then Sterling Shepard, just with the Mike Evans news, Shepard's going to continue to operate as the number 2, number 3 receiver. And he might be more valuable than Godwin for the next couple of weeks. There's some deep stashes on there for you. Tight ends real quick here. Hunter Henry had a blow-up game. He's probably just worth just leaving in your lineup and taking the spikes with the lows. Brenton Strange, Chico Conquo, Isaiah Likely, those are guys that I'm interested in. Cole Kmet, if we get Loveland news and he's missing time, Cole Kmet is startable. I also think Aronde Gadsden should be owned in dynasty leagues. And then last but not least, before we get to your guys' questions, these defenses, not a good defensive week. A lot of the top plays are already owned. So Bills at home against New Orleans, Chargers at New York Giants against rookie quarterback. That's kind of where I'm leaning. So there's your full waiver wire report, kind of just packaged real quickly there for you guys. So again, good evening, Jason. Good evening, Harris. Hope you guys are doing well. Chase Brown, I know the volume is there, but what are we doing with him? I think we got to give it one more week here to see how bad it could be. They're going to get Denver. They're going on the road against Denver this weekend. And it's hard to take anything out of a game that gets blown out like that. I do think Chase Brown he's still the bell cow. He's still, going to get a lot of receptions and PPR work. This was a terrible game, and he still got 6 fantasy points. I just don't know how valuable this role is. He's still a running back 2 for me. He's kind of down in the Tony Pollard tier now, where a guy that I think is going to get the volume, but we just don't know about the success and the touchdown opportunities. So if it's me, let's take a look on Monday Night Football. If you can find a trade partner for him, go ahead and do so. We're talking other RB2s. I mean, if you can trade Chase Brown for Tony Pollard, if you can trade him for David Montgomery, you're probably not getting Scattaboo. You're probably not getting some of those guys that are ascending right now. But it is worth seeing maybe what Chase Brown can be sold for if you're trying to get out from underneath this. Monangai or Marks to keep? That's a fun question. I think Woody Marks' time is coming soon. I think he's a guy that, basically it's only been 3 games, but right here he forces, and this is a tough divisional game. The Texans were in it, so nothing was given to Woody Marks. But they basically did a 50-50 split between Chubb and Woody Marks here. Chubb still, beat him in carries and targets, but there's good ascension here for Woody Marks. He kind of beat him out, week 1 to get on the roster. Week 2, Dameon Pierce gets inactive. Dameon Pierce inactive again week 3. And then here the big one was no Dare Ogunbowale snaps. So I think Woody Marks is already kind of where we want to be. I do like Kyle Monungai's opportunity, but I think it's really going to his opportunity relies on an injury to DeAndre Swift. Whereas Woody Marks, he might be able to beat Nick Chubb. And obviously, if there's an injury to Nick Chubb, that's kind of where it all goes together. But Monungai here still getting involved. This was a blowout game, so they're able to, run the ball in the end. But it's still Swift's backfield. I think I'm going to keep Woody Marks because he's a guy that I see starting, maybe soon, maybe as soon as sometime in October, we could see the shift happen, maybe even week 4. I would like to hold on to Samson yet because I think we saw some talent there in the first couple games that I really liked. They're still playing Jerome Ford a ton, which is frustrating. We almost need an injury to Jerome Ford for things to truly unlock. But this was a pretty bad run out, and I don't quite understand it. Only 5 snaps, 3 routes, and 1 carry. They like Jerome Ford in the receiving game, and obviously they like Quinshon Judkins running the football. So he is kind of the odd man out in the box scores right now. I think if you need to draw, if we're comparing Samson to, Monungai or Woody Marks, I'm probably looking at Monungai and Marks as guys that have a little bit of a step ahead. I don't think there's going to be any suspension for Judkins coming at this point of the season, so maybe that happens in 2026, but for now, it looks like it's Judkins and Ford. We truly need an injury to Judkins and Ford because I guess both guys look good in their role. I do want to see more Samson soon, and maybe we see that at some point, but I think I'm going to take Marks and Monungai over Samson. And good evening to Ron. What say you? I'm having it's week 4, man. We're up in it now. Everything's got a good rhythm and flow. Hopefully you guys are still alive in your survivor pools and on the up and up in your redraft leagues and dynasty leagues. So we're doing real well over here. I think the exciting part for me is that I don't know, man. It was a bad Packers loss in week 3, but I still have high hopes for the season. So we're looking good. Fire Benson up, yes, or continue with Swift. At this point, we got to, if you had Benson, man, this is what you've been waiting for. DeAndre Swift against the Raiders. The Raiders had been proving to be kind of a stingy opponent to the running backs, and then we see the big points come from the Commanders, which was kind of weird. But I am seeing potential for Benson to just get all the touches. I think Amari DiMercado is going to get some touches here. And again, the Raiders, for the Bears matchup here, the Raiders rank 9th best against the opponent running backs here. And you have the Seattle Seahawks 23rd. So they haven't a lot of touchdown yet either. So they're due for some regression there. But they're giving up yards and catches to the running backs here. So that's a good spot. We're going to see touchdowns start to go against the Seattle Seahawks. So I like Benson this week at home. It's a short week. I expect him to be the focal point of the offense on Thursday Night Football. We're going to go Trey Benson pretty easily there. Rank Austin, Kirk, and Burden. Austin, Kirk, and Burden. Austin. Who's Austin? Calvin Austin. Let me just pull these guys up. I used to do this a couple of years ago where we would kind of do these side-by-sides comparisons here. So I'm curious here. Which ones why did it clear that? I guess I'm adding into my watch list. Oh, I have to compare. Okay. So we'll do Kirk. We'll do Austin. And the last one there is Burden. So I think Burden, I'm excited. He did get a big play finally for the first time this season. But for usage department, I think Christian Kirk's the one that excites me the most. I know it wasn't a great stat line, but hey, Jacksonville's defense is kind of good. But we see Kirk come out in his first game, 3 receptions, 25 yards, 8 targets on the day. And I think the thing that I really liked about it all was that they really let him just go out and run and operate as the team's number 2 receiver, which was, what's what we were hoping for. But coming off an injury, man, I was pretty encouraged to see him step right into this role. You can see right here, let me zoom out. Christian Kirk, 42 of 63 snaps, 33 of 43 routes, and second on the team with 8 targets. I think against a lesser opponent. Right now, the Jags defense is pretty good. I think against a lesser opponent, Christian Kirk, especially against the Titans this weekend, I think Kirk is a guy that I would probably, if I had to start one of these players for week 4, it's probably Kirk. I think Austin against Minnesota has some challenges. I think Burden is an up-and-coming player, but he's still behind, DJ Moore. He's still behind Rome Odunze. You got Cole Kmet in there. We'll see about Loveland. I don't know if he's a full-time player yet. Let's look at those numbers real quick for the rookie receiver in Chicago. And yeah, he's only running 17 routes, or not even. He's the number 4 receiver behind Zacchaeus. So he is still the longest hold, because we expect him to maybe hop Zacchaeus at some point. But even if he does hop Zacchaeus, he's still, not running a ton of routes as this number 3 receiver. So I'm going to rank them as Kirk, Austin, and Burden final there. Rodriguez or Sanders? I guess I need to know the question. Is this to start a guy? Is this to hold on to a guy for the rest of season? That would maybe be different roles for me. I think if I'm starting a guy, it's probably Chris Rodriguez. We saw Chris Rodriguez start the game, get up to 11 touches in week 3. No receptions or targets, only runs 3 routes. But you're kind of looking at a Brian Robinson type role for him. And it's just unfortunate because we're splitting. And I see your next question is, what are we doing with JCM? This is what nothing's changed with JCM. The Austin Eckler injury did not change anything. He did maybe run a few more routes, but if anything, Chris Rodriguez being there kind of took some carries away from JCM. So it is a little bit of frustration there. I do think over time, JCM could just continue to look better and operate with more carries and touches and things like that. We did see him get a goal line carry for a touchdown. And then McNichols here, I expected McNichols to get more routes and work in the passing game. He didn't get a single target in this one, only ran 6 routes. It's kind of a mess. I kind of want one more data point on this backfield. I think if I had to start one guy from this backfield, it would be still JCM. This weekend, the Commanders, what do the Commanders get this week? They're going to get Atlanta. Atlanta's been pretty good against the running back so far. But as far as what we're doing with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I mean, if you can field trade offers, I think I'm open to listening to things. I just don't know if he's going to be a player that we're ever going to feel comfortable starting. It's basically the Brian Robinson role for him, where he's going to get 8 to 12 carries per game, and if he can get a catch or two, that's great. I do think Jaden Daniels coming back could lift the running game here even more to new heights. So maybe we just hold. Let's use week 4 as another week to learn about this, because this team was comfortably ahead for the good majority of this game. And I think a tough game here on the road in Atlanta. We'll learn a little bit more about the Commanders. But overall, it's pretty annoying and murky. Who? Oh, yeah, you got Trey McBride and Mark Andrews. You don't need Harold Fannin. You need Matthew Golden. And I get the hype there with a guy like Trey Tucker. He's going to be hard to predict when it is best to start him. I was just at the game. Why did I go down? But Trey Tucker, he's been kind of operating as a number 2 receiver all season here. 62 snaps, 33 of 34 routes, 9 targets in this one. So that, I mean, it looks really good. He's a deep play specialist. If we look at the numbers real quick here for Mr. Tucker, and Tucker's going to be widely available in your waiver wires. And he's a guy that I think might be kind of fun this season, but it's like, when do you start him? The floor is, this 3 for 12, but we did see 8 and 9 targets. Maybe there's a trend here, but this is a wide range of a margin here. And he's kind of like a Kayshon Boutte type player where we just don't know what we're going to get. He's going to be out there a lot, but I am hesitant to start him in my lineups. Maybe this week against Chicago, it's a good matchup here. Again, 8 and 9 targets. That is pretty nice. But I just don't know how many games he's going to outplay Jakobi Meyers and Brock Bowers. He'd happen to do so in this one. So I am a little nervous here. I want Matthew Golden on my team. We're talking about a guy that, again, first round draft capital. Packers are slowly starting to get him more involved. And the first play of the game was a pass to Matthew Golden, which to me says, hey, good things. Like, they're going to be trying to make sure he gets the ball. Ends up getting 4 targets, 4 catches, and 3 carries in this one. And honestly, in week 2, he should have had 2 touchdowns and like over 100 yards. In week 3, he did catch like a nice, like a deeper 40-yard play up the seam or up the sideline, and he kind of lost his balance, but it looked like he could have maybe ran for a 95-yard touchdown. So big plays are coming for Matthew Golden, and I think I'm getting pretty excited if I have him on my roster. So pick up Golden. Let's drop Fannin. Mark Andrews back. Ron, I think we're clear for takeoff with Mark Andrews. Like it was kind of like the same thing when I was talking about with Golden. Like, they came out and they got Mark Andrews going early, which I think is something that you do have to do with your best players, make them continue to be appreciated. But Mark Andrews comes out 7 targets, 6 receptions, the big 2 touchdowns, 27 fantasy points. I'm hoping this is what kickstarts him. I know Isaiah Likely's coming back, but there's room for him in this offense. I still expect Mark Andrews to be the lead tight end in this situation. So it is pretty crazy what's going on with the tight ends right now. It just kind of is what it is. If we look at the guys these are the top tight ends from week 3 here: Hunter Henry, Mark Andrews, Ferguson, Kincaid, Hawkinson. Hawkinson was drafted high, but McBride, the consensus tight end 2, tight end 6. Brock Bowers, not even in the top. He's tight end 20. And he's been kind of dealing with that knee thing going on. But it is pretty ugly at the tight end spot. I think you're feeling pretty good if you have Juwan Johnson, McBride. You're probably feeling good if you got Kincaid. I know you're feeling good about Ferguson. But other than that, if you got Brock Bowers, you're pretty disappointed. I think if you have Kyle Pitts, you're pretty excited. Njoku, it was still disappointing to see Fannin do what he's been doing, but Njoku's at least getting 8 to 10 points per game. So tight end is kind of a shit show right now. But Mark Andrews, man, we're back. I think we're back. How much would you bid on Rodriguez or Sanders? I don't view these guys as potential starting assets in a fantasy lineup. I view these guys as solid bench pieces, so I'm not going to blow the bank. If my budget's $100, I'm probably spending no more than $4 or $5 on a bench piece like this. And again, you guys, if you've been watching my stuff for a while, you guys know I love the waiver wire. I love building my team up every week and just continuing to peck up the bottom of my roster. But one of my favorite things to do is to hold on to that free agent auction bucks and then basically just wake up early on the day the waiver wires process and just look at that wire and grab guys for free. So put some bids in for Rodriguez. You can put some bids in for Sanders. Don't spend a lot of money on these type of players because these guys, they still need a lot to break right for them to get there. If it's me, I'm probably going to wake up and try and add D Mercado for free. I might even go and add a guy like Hassan Haskins. I might go and add a guy. Honestly, like Quint Allen's been kind of busy as a receiving down back. I just don't know, if it's going to take an ETN injury for us to get there. DJ Giddens down here would be a free ad for me. I think Will Shipley is going to be back soon for the Philadelphia Eagles. He interests me quite a bit. Kendre Miller's another name here. I like adding guys for free. And good evening to Daniel. Would you drop Seattle for one of these defenses? Detroit, Houston, Pitt, or Denver? Let's take a look at that Seattle defense because they've been playing pretty well to start the year. They've had some nice games, all double digits here in this scoring format. Interceptions in every game, 2 defensive touchdowns, sacks in every game. They've blocked kicks in every game here. They're going to get Arizona, Tampa Bay, Jacksonville, Houston. I mean, I don't hate that run out. I think you could maybe leave this team in. They do get Tampa Bay at home, which I think is a nice matchup. If it was in Tampa Bay, I'd be a little bit nervous, but they don't have Mike Evans. You have Chris Godwin kind of working himself back, and this offensive line for Tampa is a little bit worrisome. I don't hate holding on to Seattle here, but for this, like if we're starting one team for this weekend, Denver is the clear top answer here. I think Detroit, Houston, Pitt. I'm fine with Houston. They've been kind of scrappy and, keeping teams to a low point total, but they're going to get Tennessee, which is fine for this week, but then you're cutting them against Baltimore. Then they got their bye. And then, we got some tough teams here. I don't really know if I like the prospects of holding on to them. I still don't know how good the Lions defense is. They've had 2 good games in a row here, but they do give up points. They just happen to get there on sacks the last couple games to make your scores higher. I think I'm going to go Denver at home against Cincinnati for this week, but I think it's totally fine to hold on to Seattle if you want to, Daniel, for the next 4 games. Ooh, good evening to Jerry. Jerry coming in with the tough question. Let me think about this for a sec because Scadaboo looks really good. And he was a guy that made me a little nervous in August because he was missing a lot of training camp. And I just think the injury now to Tyrone Tracy basically just puts this entire backfield in his hands. And he's a good pass catcher too. So this is a potential, 15 to 20 touch guy each game. I don't see Travion Henderson getting 15 to 20 touches in a game, maybe 1 or 2 times throughout the season here. He does have an inside track now that Ramondre's kind of fumbled a little bit. But I think you got to take the volume of Scadaboo here, and he's probably just got just as equal of a receiving floor as Travion does, but he's also getting the rushing volume and the rushing touchdown. So to me, it's not close. I think it's fully Scadaboo over Travion. So pretty excited about what he can do. Man, if it depends on who we're dropping him for, I would try and maybe find a way to hold on to him because he's still making big plays, especially in the passing game. They get Carolina this week. That could be a nice bounce back opportunity for him at home. Then you're going to get Buffalo, which is a tough game, but we're talking New Orleans, Tennessee. There's still some opportunities where I think Ramondre could, be a 11 to 15 touch guy. So I don't want to drop him unless I have to. I'm going to hold maybe for at least one more game and see how it goes. Yeah, I think it's still pretty clearly Ja'Cory Krosky merit. They did start Chris Rodriguez, and he did get the first, I think maybe it was the first driver too. 11 carries, 39 yards, 3.5 yards per carry, just no work as a receiver. We were looking at the routes from this game here, and they don't really want to throw the ball to Chris Rodriguez. They're showing that they could be open to throwing it to Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. But I think this backfield is just going to be destined for a 3-back committee. It's going to be pretty frustrating. So you're banking on a touchdown every week that you start JCM, which could be often, based on the matchup. It could be fairly often that we get a JCM touchdown. So for me, it's still JCM. McNichols, I'm still expecting McNichols to be used as the receiver back. I think he's going to be the Eckler replacement in games where they have to do 2-minute offense and kind of, keep the game within reach. So I think better days are ahead for McNichols, but those are really I'm only going to use him in games where they're picked to lose. If they're playing the Eagles or a hot scoring team, that's where I'll look for McNichols. I think if they're projected to win, that's where you're looking at JCM and maybe Chris Rodriguez. But I really don't feel comfortable recommending any of these players to start in week 4. I kind of want another data point against a good Atlanta at the time, before getting blown out by 30 points to the Panthers. We considered them a good team. I want to see how this looks one more week before we start making some decisions on these guys. Rather Hunt than both of them. I'm not sure who we're talking about here. You would rather have Kareem Hunt than both of these guys? They're kind of all in the same bucket. Kareem Hunt and Pacheco, that's a pretty even split right now. If you start Kareem Hunt, you're kind of praying for that goal line touchdown, which he did get this game against the Giants. But it's a pretty even committee, slight edge to Pacheco, but they both got the same amount of carries, same targets. It just Hunt happened to get the touchdown in this one. The highest run. So if we're trading Jalen Hurts straight up, we're talking a top 5 QB. You might be able to swap out for Saquon Barkley. If someone's like, yeah, but I still want to be invested in the Eagles, I think this is probably as high as you're going to be able to get someone. I don't think you're going to get McCaffrey, Achane, Robinson, Gibbs, JT. You can maybe try for Jacobs, but I think a 1-for-1 swap, like maybe someone would be like, yeah, fuck it. Like, let's swap Eagles. You could try for James. Like, honestly, I think shoot for the moon here. Any running back that you like, Harris, I think you can go for. You can try the Derrick Henry owner after he just kind of had a bad night and fumbled the game. He's kind of been cold for 2 games in a row. You could try there. You could maybe check in on the Hampton owner and see what he's doing. Hampton looked really good against the Broncos. That's probably where I want to look. I wouldn't, go down too far on this list and trade Hurts away for one of these running backs, but I think you have the ability to get a top 10, top 12 running back for Hurts straight up. Is that for Trey Tucker? And again, I don't really love adding Trey Tucker. I think he's kind of like Rashad Bateman, Keon Coleman. I never know when I'm going to be able to trust him in my lineup. I know he's seen 8 and 9 targets the last 2 games, but those have been both kind of blowouts. I do expect the Raiders to play better at some point soon. So if you want to pick up Tucker, I'm fine with it. If you don't plan on using Ramondre Stevenson in your lineups anytime soon, that's fine too. But I don't see Ramondre just completely going away. He's still going to be able to get touches and be a thorn in Trayvon's side. But I view this as a really hard start for me week to week, unless I'm in a desperate situation with Trey Tucker. I can do it, but he's a big play guy. He needs those big plays rolling to be in our lineups. Next gen, who should I get off the waiver wire? Trey Tucker, Woody Marks, or Wandale? My running backs are Stevenson, Monty, and Javonte. Receivers are London, Puka, and Igbuka. I feel good about your receivers. Puka is the number 1 dude. He is so good. Igbuka's your number 2 right now, and London's your 3. Your running backs are Ramondre, Monty, and Javonte. So you're starting Monty and Javonte. I do think, if I can find I think Wandale, like for me, and I know Wandale didn't have a good game on Monday Night Football, but a lot of it was Russell Wilson not having a good game. I actually think Jackson Dart could be good for the Giants passing offense to guys like Malik Neighbors and Wandale Robinson. So like for me, if I had to start one guy each week for the rest of the season, I would start Wan'Dale Robinson over Trey Tucker just because I know I'm going to get a high floor each week. So I prefer Wan'Dale over Tucker. I think Woody Marks, again, maybe not week 4 yet. They have a bye week coming up soon. When is that Houston bye week here? They got a week 6 bye. And maybe by week 7, we see Woody Marks coming out and kind of being the starter here. So to me, I think you need more running backs. Monty and Javonte are pretty light. I mean, they're producing points right now, which is nice, but I think I would build out my running backs here next gen. But find a way to get Wan'Dale if you can. Double tap. Good evening. We're 3-0, baby. Let's go. I'm trying to think a few steps ahead. What are your thoughts for Rashee Rice return? Worth trying to trade for? Yeah, I think that's definitely this is a good time to start thinking about that. We're entering week 4. We still have, Rice not back until week 7. So now, before we start getting that hype, I just want to see when the bye is for the Chiefs. They got a bye week 10, so you're going to get Rice back out there week 7, 8, and 9. I mean, in 3 games, if he plays 3 games there and he looks good heading into the bye week, he might be a monster down the stretch. So that's definitely something that I do like. I don't know what he would cost, but check on your owner. I think it's going to be hard to trade for Rashee Rice because the people that drafted him, unless they're 0-3, they drafted Rice knowing he's not going to be there for 6 games. So it's like they probably had a draft plan for this. But if that team's 0-3, 1-2, and they need some assets and you're sitting there 3-0 with some bench pieces you don't need, I like that move. I think it's also worth maybe seeing if CeeDee Lamb owners are frustrated. Probably not trying to trade for Mike Evans, but I think CeeDee Lamb for sure should be kicking the tires on these guys. Let me see if there's any other running backs that might be interesting. I mean, I'm interested in continuing to pursue young running backs. I think Trey Benson, before we get the reveal here on Thursday Night Football, I think Benson's worth seeing what his price is. I think Judkins is worth seeing what his price is. Maybe even Amarian Hampton, Jordan Mason. I kind of want to see what those guys, what their temperatures are reading. And hey, I'm having a great day, Chase. Thank you for asking. I appreciate you, man. Hope you're having a fantastic Tuesday as well. Are we dropping Thornton for Woody Marks in redrafts? I think Tyquan Thornton is a really fun player. I mean, he's just your prototypical field stretching boom bust wide receiver here, but he's come through in 2 straight games, seen a lot of targets, big plays, big yards per catch for this guy. I think once Xavier Worthy's back, I don't know how this receiver rotation is going to work between Hollywood, Juju, and Thornton. I think there's going to be some select plays for Tyquan, but I don't know if he's going to be a starting caliber bench receiver for us. So I would rather own Woody Marks here if I had to choose one. Little or Sly rest of season? A kicker question. Oh my goodness. Is Joey Sly the Titans kicker? I was watching the Titans game last night just on my iPad, and I was like, who's this guy? They send him out there and they're kicking monster field goals. The Titans just don't score points. And it is Joey Sly. Like you don't want the Titans kicker. They're just not going to score enough points. I believe Little is the Jags kicker. The Jags offense still looks good. They're moving the ball. They're just having trouble with penalties and drops right now. I think Cam Little, they sent him out there for a long field goal, but he's getting extra points. He's kicking field goals. I would rather Cam Little, a better offense for me, Chase. Bretton Strange or Harold Fannin rest of season. Let's pull up some tight end stuff here. And to me, like, I get it. I like Fannin, but if we look at let me go to receiving here. Let's get rid of everything except the tight ends. Here are your tight end leaders in routes. You got Juwan Johnson, David Njoku, Kyle Pitts, Cade Otton, Ferguson, McBride, Kelsey, Henry Bowers, Theo Johnson is up there. There's Zach Ertz, Bretton Strange coming in here about tight end 12 with 92 routes on the year. And Fannin's just a little bit behind him, about 83 routes. So they're both participating in the same amount of receiving plays, which is nice. Let's go ahead and mark these guys with a color. Let's see fantasy points. Fannin has a little bit more than Brenton Strange. Let's look at targets. Harold Fannin, 2 more targets than Brenton Strange. Targets per route run, that's Fannin. Fannin's out there getting a lot of input here. Harold Fannin, again, beating him in yards per route run. So it looks like Fannin might be the better option rest of season. I think Brenton Strange had a nice game in week 3, but a lot of that might have been because the receivers weren't getting open as much. And I do expect the Jags receivers to finally get going. The big thing for Strange right now is he's got a really nice just rapport with Trevor Lawrence. And I think that's going to be sticky. Whereas I do worry about Fannin. Like what happens to Fannin when Joe Flacco's out, which I think could be in the next couple of weeks here. So I really think Fannin he's the better player talent-wise, and he's got just as good of a role as Brenton Strange, but I do worry a little bit about what happens when Dylan Gabriel's out there. I'm going to lean Brenton Strange here, but we're splitting hairs. If you have a gut feeling towards either one, I would go with that. But they're kind of the same player right now, with a little bit better numbers for our guy Harold Fannin. Booty, Booty's out here running a lot of routes. Let's pull up the Booty routes. I think he's up there in routes. Yeah, he's up here in routes. 27th most routes for a wide receiver. His targets per route run, though, is pretty bad. He's only getting about 12 targets per route. This is not going to be a guy that we're ever going to feel confident starting unless things, change. But they're running Mac Hollins, Stephon Diggs, Demario Douglas. There's a lot of receivers out there. The tight ends are kind of good. They're going to throw to the running backs a lot. If you can find a better replacement for Booty, like I'd rather pick up Parker Washington right now. I'd rather have Trey Tucker probably right now. Guys like that. Daniel says Dobbs or Golden this week and rest of season. I think rest of season, it's still pretty easily Matthew Golden for me. I think Dobbs is just like he's the placeholder running all the number 1 snaps, all the number 1 routes. But I am very encouraged about what is going to happen for Matthew Golden. We're starting to see some good things. And hey, he put together a 10-point fantasy day, which, if you're going to start a player, to me, my benchmark is I want my 10 points in a PPR league. I want my 10 points. I want my double digits. And again, we were talking earlier, he just missed out on another big, 95-yard touchdown. So I think Golden is going to continue to get better and better. And the dude just gets open, which I think the Packers are slowly learning that we need to continue to get him involved more. He ends up with 4 targets in this one. Dobbs is still going to run more snaps and routes as the team's official number 1 receiver on the depth chart. But I think we're going to start to see a switch here where Golden might be almost startable every week going forward. So for me, this week, it's the Cowboys. I think if we look at the fantasy points allowed by the Cowboys right now, like what they're allowing to opponent quarterbacks is pretty outrageous. Like Dallas here, 900 yards. So we're averaging 300 passing yards per game. We're averaging over 2 passing touchdowns per game to this quarterback here. And then they are allowing rushing stuff too. So I don't think Jordan Love's going to be that much of a factor there. But if Jordan Love comes out and throws 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, like both of these guys are startable this week. They're both going to be wide receiver 3 flexes for me. I'm going to swing for the fences with Matthew Golden this week, though. Deontay Thornton. If that's this question, Deontay. Yeah, we're cutting Deontay Thornton. We talked about Chase Brown a little bit at the start of the show. I think, it was a really bad. I don't want to overreact to one awful game. And as bad as this was, he still got 6 PPR points. If he goes out and he gets 1 or 2 PPR points, then I'm going to be pretty upset. But a 6-point floor here is not the worst. I do expect them to bounce back, maybe not beat the Broncos, but be more competitive at least. So we'll see. This pushes him down, though, significantly. I think my rest of season rankings, let me just take a peek at those. And for you guys that are members, my rest of season rankings were published this morning. Let me see where I got these running backs here. So yeah, I pushed Chase Brown down to the Tony Pollard, Chuba Hubbard, Jalen Warren tier. If you want to try and flip Chase Brown, like this is probably the group that you got to start talking to. If you want to try, if you think you want to get out ahead, if you think the Bengals are going to just continue to look really bad, then yeah, I'm probably taking a shot on Tony Pollard, shot on Chuba, Jalen Warren, Judkins. You're probably not going to get Scadaboo or Travion Henderson, but it's worth talking to these guys. Trey Benson, you're probably not going to be able to get. But if you're nervous about it, that's what we're looking at. I think he's pushed down to low end RB2 status. But Chase Brown's still getting the volume, guys. BTJ and Marvin need to be okay. So kind of two different things going on with these players. I think BTJ is kind of responsible for his problems. Marvin did have a drop or two last week that were pretty bad and frustrating to see. But I have this habit of, my most important league, when I make my draft plan and I draft my most important team and I get invested with certain players and teams for the season. I had the Marvin Kyler Murray stack last year. So I watched a ton of Arizona Cardinals football. I don't think Kyler Murray is a good fit for Marvin Harrison. The offense that they're kind of running for Marvin Harrison too, I think could be better. We almost need a new offensive coordinator or a shift in philosophy. Maybe Kyler can make it work, but right now I see these two guys as kind of incompatible. So I'm frustrated with Marvin. He's kind of pushed down to a wide receiver 3 flex for me. I think there's still hope for Brian Thomas Jr., who's getting open. He did have, for him playing as awful as he is, we're still getting 8 to 9 fantasy points per game, which we could be Calvin Ridley out here getting no points. So I think Thomas is going to turn the corner hopefully soon. He did have an 18-yard catch called back from a really stupid illegal shift. He did have one bad drop where it was like maybe a 8 to 10 yard kind of out route. So that's another 2 points there. We mentioned the 18-yard catch. So we left about almost 5 points out there. And then he did have like a nice 30-yard catch where he went up for it and it kind of just bobbled it and lost it. So we could have had a 100-yard day. I think we're really close with BTJ. Marvin, though, we're gonna find out tomorrow night. I am pretty nervous about Marvin Harrison Jr. right now. And it's not really for Marvin Harrison reasons. I know he's got the 2 drops on the season, and they were kind of bad drops. But I'm nervous about the compatibility for Kyler Murray. Yes, it's funny that your name's Chase Brown, man. I always think about that. We're a Cowboys fan, and I'm going to start. Oh, okay. I think that's not a bad idea. I mean, I do think at some point Dallas is going to figure it out and try to, correct some things and maybe not be the worst passing defense in the league. But this week, I mean, they're getting the Packers off a really embarrassing loss. I think the Packers are going to come out and stretch the field in this one. So honestly, I think all the Packers players, Tucker Kraft, Matthew Golden, Romeo Doubs. And if you need somebody, I think this is a good week to maybe pick up like a guy like Dontavian Wicks. If he's dropped, I think that's not a bad stash because Wicks is, we were just looking at the numbers here. Wicks is out there running as the Packers' clear number 3 receiver. Did see 4 targets on 21 routes, which is a decent, roughly 21% targets per route run. So I think good things are coming for the Packers passing game finally. Let me just pull this up here. And I do have Dobbs and Golden ranked as wide receiver 3 flexes this week. So my week 4 start sit charts are up there, guys, if you are a member. I do think Ford, if I tell myself, I want to shoot for, I don't know, 5 to 10 points from a PPR running back too, I think he's going to continue to be the receiving back. He's not getting any carries now that Judkins is up to speed. And in a game against the Lions too this weekend, I think the Lions at home, that's a tough matchup. We might see more Ford and Sampson than we did in week 3. So Ford, I wouldn't say startable, but in a PPR league, man, I get it. Sometimes it gets pretty gross throughout the year. I think Ford, he's kind of in that Justice Hill line where, you know what, I want my 6-7 points from a few catches. I think sometimes that's what you got to do. So I do have shares of Douglas and Palmer in dynasty leagues. I tend to not, 'cause I think they are good players, and these guys are both kind of the odd man's out right now, where all it is we're one Mac Hollins or Stephon Diggs injury away from picking up Demario Douglas again. Josh Palmer, I think he's a good receiver. He just kind of fell to the number 3 receiver. He only ran 15 to 32 routes. If I'm cutting one, I'm probably cutting Joshua Palmer over Demario Douglas. If you want to make a move, that's probably what I would do. We've seen Joshua Palmer, and he really hasn't taken anything. And it seems like the Bills are pretty set with making sure Coleman and Shakir are the 1 and the 2. Whereas Douglas, he's kind of the backup slot receiver right now. He did run 22 of 47 routes. He did have 5 targets in this game. I think he's still a guy that they like on this team. And again, it's kind of like I said, like they got these receivers ahead of them right now. One of those guys goes down, we could be back to liking Demario Douglas. Yeah, so Green Bay, Houston, LAC, New England defenses for this week. I think let's go ahead and look at the charts. Nope, the DraftKings game lines. So you guys can check this out. This is on the free portion of the website, but I like looking at the team totals. And it looks like I might have cut this off on the bottom here. But we're ranking Green Bay, Houston, LAC, and New England. So the teams that aren't going to score a lot of points, like the Giants with Jackson Dart, sure, it could look nicer, but I don't expect him to come out and have a ton of success. I do like the Houston Texans this weekend. The Tennessee Titans projected to score, and it's kind of blocking it here, but the Titans are down here to score the fewest points in the league. So Houston at home I'm betting money on Houston to get their first win of the year this week. I think Houston is a pretty safe one. I think Green Bay, Dallas is still projected to score some points. I do think they're going to struggle to protect Dak Prescott. We don't have CeeDee Lamb. I do think the Packers could easily take advantage of a Dak Prescott turnover or two. But I'm thinking the Houston Texans offer the safest floor and a really nice upside. We saw Cam Ward throw a pick 6 in one of the opening plays last week. I do like the Chargers again. New England, I'm not really sure I'm all that in love with. I do think Carolina's offense is hard to predict. They came out and kicked the butts out of the Atlanta Falcons. So to me, it's between the Texans, the Chargers, and the Packers. I think I'm just going to stick with the Texans, man. We'll stick with the Texans here. But I got time for another question or two if you guys do have it. I will be going live tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Central Time, so same time as tonight. If you guys want to join me and get your start-sit questions in, we'll cover all of the practice news and kind of get you guys prepped for week number 4 and just read the player news and that kind of stuff. But a lot of good things over on thefantasyfellowship.com. If you guys want access to this, there's memberships as low as $8 a month. You guys can do the 2-week trial for $5. Check it out. I'm putting out a ton of content. Waiver Wire Report, start-sit charts. The weekly rankings will be out tomorrow. Rest of season rankings were out today. My dynasty rankings will be up at always the first of the month. I do my dynasty rank updates and then my post-game notes. So I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me on a Tuesday evening in September here. I hope you guys have a good rest of your evening. And again, thank you for spending time with me. We'll see you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central Time. Have a good one. Peace, guys.